Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host, Nathan B. Butler, and this time we're taking a look at an item that actually came in the same package, the same eBay auction, as what we looked at in our last episode, which was that crazy complete run of all 6 of the UK Ewok releases, or at least the regular ones. We are still going to be looking at that one from the cheese spread sometime soon, which is just weird. Now we're going to look at the companion to Ewoks, which was Droids. Droids only aired 13 episodes in the United States, and then had The Great Heep as a TV special long after the series had ended. Basically, the series ran from September to November, basically only 3 months, right? September, October, November of 1985. And then in June of 1986, they aired The Great Heep, which is basically double length. It's sort of like having 2 episodes combined into one. It was an hour-long special. It was only ever presented as that hour-long special on ABC. As far as I know, there had never been any reruns of that one on ABC. Now, Droids was a little different. Droids had basically 3 story arcs. The first one was 4 episodes, The White Witch, Escape into Terror, The Trigon Unleashed, and A Race to the Finish. Then you had a second story arc that could either be seen as 4 or 5, which was The Lost Prince, The New King, The Pirates of Tarnuga, The Revenge of Kybo Ren, not Kylo Ren, Kybo Ren, as in Kybo Ren Shah, the pirate guy, not the emo guy that worships Vader or anything like that I find fascinating. And then we had this 5th episode to that, sort of, called Kobe and the Star Hunters, which acted kind of like an epilogue to bring them from one set of owners to the next, or at least get them away from that set of owners so they could be ready for the next. Which then brings us to Trail of the Rune Comets, the Rune Games, Across the Rune Sea, and the Frozen Citadel, which were episodes 10 through 13. After all of that, we moved on to The Great Heep about 7 months later. In the United States, we saw home video releases for Droids in sort of weird ways, starting in 1990. 1990, just like with Ewoks, had 1 single episode release, and right around the same time, 2 double episode releases, like they were testing the waters to see what would work. They were all labeled the Star Wars Trilogy Animated Collection, in this case, Droids, The Adventures of R2-D2 and C-3PO, white case here, The Lost Prince. Oddly, this was episode 5. This was the beginning of the second story arc, not the first. The first of the double-length versions, Volume 1, was The White Witch and Escape to Terror. Those were episodes 1 and 2, which are the ones that kicked off the series, the first story arc. And I'm pretty sure I just said "ter," so pardon me. It's from living through 8 years of W. Then we had Volume 2 of those double-length ones, The Lost Prince and The New King. So this repeated the episode from that single episode release and gave us the first 2 episodes of the 4 episodes in the second story arc. So we never had a complete story arc back in 1990, and we did have a little bit of overlap, so it winds up being 4 episodes, even though you would think there would have been 5. 1 is repeated. Fast forward to 1997, and we have another new release, but again, they went, for their first release, straight to the second story arc. And we got The Pirates and the Prince, which basically was that story arc minus its epilogue. No Kobe and the Star Hunters. This was, again, one of those ones that was basically 4 episodes that were combined together to make one movie-length episode that had some edits to it and had a rescoring done. We saw this in a lot of details about where the cuts were made back when originally covering Droids and Ewoks for the first time. But bear in mind, this is the movie-style version of it, and it has cut off Kobe and the Star Hunters as the epilogue. After another 7-year jump in 2004, we got this. Animated Adventures, Droids, double feature. Now this is the one that includes The Pirates and the Prince again, this time on DVD, along with Treasure of the Hidden Planet. And Treasure of the Hidden Planet was basically the 3rd story arc. So we never actually got a DVD release, whether in good individual episode format or combined together into a movie format that at least works better for Droids than it does for Ewoks, of the first story arc. Nor did we see Kobe and the Star Hunters, nor did we see that hour-long special, The Great Heep. Well, in the UK, it was different. They got almost every episode of Droids released on VHS in 1988. Now, unlike Ewoks, where it had 6 volumes, this set had 4. Now, you might be confused and think, well, shouldn't there have been 3? At first, I was thinking, shouldn't there have been 3? Now, in Ewok's case, there were no TV specials. It was just 13 episodes per season and 2 seasons. So each season got 3 VHS tapes, which held 4 TV aired episodes worth, although some were split in half into 2 stories, of content. With the problem being, of course, that if there's room for 12 and there were 13, one gets left out of each season. The same thing happened with Droids, but in Droids' case, thankfully, they kept it to story arcs. So we got the first story arc as Volume 1, the second story arc as Volume 2, Kobe and the Star Hunters is the one that gets left out, that epilogue that also got left out of The Pirate and the Prince when it was turned into a movie version, and then we had the final story arc added. But then the question is, well, what do you do now that you've got all of Season 1? What happens to the Great Heep? That turns out to be the one item from the UK Droids line that I've managed to get my hands on at this point. I actually found it in the same auction as all of those Ewok ones seen in the last episode and an extra copy of Droids Volume 2 from the US that I wound up selling off. The Great Heep got its own release that was not numbered. The only release of Ewoks or Droids in the regular releases from the UK from CBS Fox that didn't have a number. There were, of course, those Dairy Lee cheese spread releases of 1 episode each in the UK. We'll look at the Ewok one soon when it arrives for me. I haven't acquired the Droids one, but it wasn't the Great Heep for that either. So again, for regular releases, the one with no number is the Great Heep. We have Star Wars Droids up here in the corner, the Great Heep. It's a slightly different design to the packaging here than what we saw with Ewoks. We have U because it is universal, suitable for all, as opposed to U standing for unentertaining, because Droids at least was a little bit better than Ewoks was, even if they did seem like they were made of rubber. We have the Great Heep himself, R2-D2, C-3PO, CBS Fox, down there at the bottom. The sides, similar to what we saw with Ewok, CBS Fox, a image from the front, the title there, the rating, VHS, the product number and such. And you look at the tape, we'll look at the back in a second. You look at the tape, very similar to Ewoks, which is the logo there, except this time there's no point in listing the episodes which weren't on the Ewoks ones because this is the episode name. And then you have, you have your advertising there that is essentially the same as what we saw in the first 4 volumes of Ewoks from the UK. But more interestingly is the description, which we find on the back. Back here, in images, description, cast crew type information, and our information like ratings and whatnot down there at the bottom. It reads, when merchant/explorer Mungo Baobab discovers a valuable fuel source on the distant planet B2, the Empire dispatches a gigantic evil droid called the Great Heep to capture Mungo and take control of the mining operation. Arriving on B2 to meet their new master, C-3PO is forced to work on the maintenance crew while R2-D2 is hustled away to the Heap's droid harem. Yes, droid harem. If you haven't seen the episode, try to picture that. Then go wash your brain out with soap. The little droid escapes to look for his missing friend, C-3PO, who has joined forces with a small boy named Fidge and his pet, Chub. Together, they devise a daring scheme to free Mungo, defeat the forces of the Empire, and liberate B2 from the Great Heep forever. That actually sounds kind of compelling, compared to the descriptions for the Ewoks episodes, and doesn't have a lot of grammatical issues in it, which is nice, also unlike the Ewok ones. But what's interesting about this is that this aired 7 months after the series was over, but it's basically a prologue, a prelude, a lead-in to the 3rd story arc. So you have Story Arc 1, then straight into Story Arc 2. Story Arc 2 gets an epilogue, which doesn't get a release in the UK, Kobe and the Star Hunters. Then the Great Heep takes place, which didn't air until later, which introduces Mungo Baobab, and then you get the 3rd arc, where their master is Mungo Baobab. But those aired months prior to this. So we had this weird thing of these stories being told out of order in how they were aired. And because of that, when they collect Season 1 and then the Great Heep for the UK, the Great Heep gets tacked on at the end, and once again, they are essentially out of order. Though you could certainly just watch the Great Heep between volumes 2 and 3, and you get to see the series in airing order with the exception of Kobe and the Star Hunters. Once again, a fun new addition. I look forward to someday hopefully hunting down the rest of these from the UK, but I'm not going to press my luck right now, and these cost a bit whenever I bought that auction. So, hope you enjoyed taking a look at some of these UK releases of Droids in this case, and Ewoks in the last episode. Coming up soon, we have that episode on the Ewoks Dairy Mail Away from Cheese Spread, and we'll be moving on with more from the Star Wars Home Video Library. For now, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the home video viewers.